Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the Canteen Cooks. My name is Renee and we're here at Little C. Today's a very special day. I mean, I know Thanksgiving in Canada has passed. Thanksgiving's coming up in the United States, as is Christmas. But today we're going to have the battle of the pies, the battle of the sweet potato pie versus the pumpkin pie. And you may think that yes, they are similar, but I'm going to show you that they're not. When it comes to pies, the most important part is the pie dough. We're going to make a crust today. It's super easy. It's like more of a recipe, like half of my mother's, half Charlie and Jen's from Les Fougères, where I used to work in Chelsea. Super easy. All you need is flour. Today I'm using butter, but my mom uses lard, and sometimes I use lard, especially if I'm doing like a tortilla or something like that. Really cold water and salt. And the recipe and all the ingredients are in the description for this, but it's easy. 2 flour, 1 fat, about 1/4 cup of water, and a pinch of salt. And remember, when I tell my staff, is like when you're making anything, especially if it's like a pie dough or bread, sometimes it needs a little less, sometimes it needs a little more moisture. It all depends on sort of like the humidity in the air. I always say start with a little. You can always add, but you can never take away. I'm going to do mine in a food processor just because it's super easy and fast. Just 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to put that right into my RoboCoupe right here. And super easy. I'm not going to sift it. I don't use pastry flour. I just use straight up all-purpose because that's what most of us have at home anyways. A good pinch of salt. And I've got my cold butter here. The colder the better. What happens is we're gonna basically process it until we get like nice pieces, almost like grainy. Not too small because you wanna see those big pieces of butter when you're rolling out, because as the butter melts, it's gonna create steam, which is gonna make it beautiful and golden and puffy and brown. So I'm just gonna cut these. This is like a cup of butter, and I'm gonna just cut it into little pieces. That way it's easier for me to process. And you don't wanna process this too much because nobody wants a like tough pie crust. I think we've all been there, and believe me, I'm not a baker, but I mean, I've certainly had some hits and misses. Let's get this going. I'm just gonna pulse this until my butter breaks up. So right now I have sort of like chunks of butter. It almost looks sort of like oatmeal, and that's exactly where you want it to be. So I'm going to run this, and I'm going to add a little bit of water at a time until what happens is my dough will actually come together and form a ball, and then turn it off right away, and that's good to go. All right, now it's basically formed a ball in my bowl. So I'm basically just going to wrap this up in saran wrap. I'm going to press it down, and I'm going to chill it for about half an hour, and then it's good to go. Our pie dough has been chilling in the fridge for about half an hour. You can leave it longer, and then this is the moment of truth. How many of us have actually like made a pie dough and have tried to roll it out, and it's like stuck everywhere, and you're like really unhappy? I've been there with you. So let's keep our fingers crossed that, I'm not a baker. Let's hope. So always start with a good amount of flour. The most important thing when rolling out a pie dough is that you keep moving it, and it has enough flour and that it doesn't get stuck everywhere. You want to keep moving as you roll. This is something that my mom taught me. This is also really good for the upper body. So again, move, make sure you have plenty of flour underneath, and keep going. Now I'm looking at my dough, and it's beautiful because I've got really nice sort of like specks of butter throughout, which is perfect, which means it wasn't over-processed. Again, I'm going to spin it around, because have you ever had it where you've like rolled it out perfectly and then it was stuck to the table? I like to roll mine on my rolling pin, get my pie plate, and then look at that! My mother would be proud if she could see me now. I'm proud. Usually, like, have you ever had that moment where you're like making something and then you're like patching it? So I'm going to press it in, make sure that I have plenty of overhang, and I'm just going to cut, leaving about like a 1/2 inch going around. If you're like me, you can save the scraps. And what I do is I put brown sugar on them and I roll them up and I cut them into almost like a little pinwheel cookie for my kids, which they really like. We used to call it in French, les pâtes de sœur, nun's farts, as my brother used to always say. So I'm going to press this in and I'm just going to fold my pastry over so that I have sort of a nice edge on this. Because you could do anything with the pie crust. You can make them super fancy. You can be like me. Usually I would just do super old school and pinch the top of my crust. All right, so there we go. And I'm just gonna do like this. This is how my mom taught me, all the way around. All right, there we go. Everything's in there. I've got over here my foil with some rice. Obviously, you're not going to use that rice again because it will not work. And I like to put parchment paper first because sometimes I find the tin foil will actually stick. So I'm just going to put my parchment in and then my foil with my rice. And then just make sure that everything is laid out, that there's a tiny bit of overhang so that my crust doesn't get too dark. And I'm going to pop this into a 375-degree oven and read the instructions. And when it comes out, we'll see what it looks like. Now let's talk filling. We're going to do pumpkin and we're going to do sweet potato. I roasted my sweet potatoes, but I'm using pumpkin puree for my pumpkin pie. So let's start with the pumpkin. I'm going to do 2 cups of pumpkin puree, not the pie filling. You want pure puree. Evaporated milk, brown sugar, eggs, and the spices that we're going to use today are whole nutmeg. I like to actually grate mine. Ginger, I use allspice, and cinnamon. So let's mix it up. I've got all my ingredients in my bowl, so I'm just going to mix this up. And to me, this is the smell of fall. You've got the allspice and the cinnamon, the nutmeg and the ginger. This is basically my favorite flavors in the whole wide world. Next, we have the sweet potato. I've roasted 2 very large sweet potatoes because I need about 2 cups of sweet potato. And they take a bit of time. They usually take about an hour and a half in the oven, so you can never over roast, don't worry. So I've mashed it up using my, my whisk. And just like with the pumpkin pie, again, we're going to add brown sugar, eggs, evaporated milk. But the difference here is we're going to add vanilla, and I used vanilla paste, and butter. So a little bit more on the sort of sweeter side, then more of the spicy side. So we have 2 very delicious, very different fillings with different sort of flavor profiles, I guess you could say. I mean, if you had to guess, I don't know if you would know the difference. I mean, I can tell the difference, but I think it'll all be in the taste test once we bake it. I have my 2 pre-baked pie shells. As you can tell, they're not even stuck to the bottom and they're nice and crispy. So I'm going to pour in my sweet potato into one, and I'm going to put my pumpkin into the other. And then I'm going to put them in a 375-degree oven for about an hour. Now, Doug was just asking me, what is the trick to knowing when they're done? Well, I usually just sort of give them a bit of a jiggle. That way you can see that they're still not super liquid, that the eggs have sort of done their job and kept it all together. So let's all hope. And in we go with both. Let's hope I don't spill. I like to give them just a little bit of a shake to try to get rid of any of the air pockets. Both of these pies are looking pretty fine, and I can't wait for them to come out of the oven. Pies have come out of the oven and it smells absolutely amazing in here. Before Doug and I actually try these to figure out which one we prefer, I actually think I'm going to put some marshmallows on top of my sweet potato pie, sort of like the sweet potato pie casserole that you'd get. I'm going to torch them, and then for my slice of pumpkin pie, I've made a little brown sugar and rum whipped cream, just a little dollop on the side. So wish me luck, we're going to torch. All right, so the battle of the pies has come to an end, but who will be the winner? I think I know, like in my mind, who I want. I've got this like sweet potato pie with some marshmallows. I've got my pumpkin pie with little brown sugar, rum, whipped cream, but I can't decide alone. So Doug, I'm gonna have to invite you over here and you're basically gonna have to be the judge.
All right. This was a lot of fun to watch you make this.
Oh really? Was it? I'm actually pretty proud by my pie crust. It's nice and flaky.
Yeah, the crust is amazing. So second episode, this one was trickier. We bit off a bit more than we could chew maybe, but you know what? Renee always comes through. The results are amazing, and I get rewarded regardless of how
With
well
pie.
I did. So pie fixes everything too, as we all know. So let me try it. So I got the pumpkin here, right?
I have sweet potato. I mean, I think I already knew hands down I was gonna prefer the sweet potato anyways.
I mean, pumpkin's pretty delightful, I have to say. The crust is on the money, you know, nice and light, fluffy. All right.
Swap.
But, you know, the marshmallow and the sweet potato is very nostalgic for me. My mother always made a sweet potato pie casserole with marshmallows on top, which everyone thought was super weird in a casserole as a sort of savory dish, but as a pie, it makes total sense.
I don't know, actually now that I taste the pumpkin, all the spices, especially the allspice and the fresh nutmeg, I don't know. But you know what, Doug? I think it's the crust.
The crust is maybe one of your best ever, I have to say.
I think so.
Well done. Thank you for not killing me today.
It was pretty close to death at a few points today.
But thanks again, guys. You know, we're just getting our feet wet here, trying to figure out what the hell we're doing. But we're having fun. We are. So please keep giving us some suggestions of fun things that Renee can make. And we'll be back next week.
Yeah, maybe it'll be salads next week. I love salads. So can I please do salads?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
No cooking. That's always good.
Whoop.
All right. Make sure to give us a subscribe and a thumbs up and leave your comments if you have any. And look forward to seeing you soon.
Awesome. Have a great pie day. Haha.